think trust is probably one of the key things that makes it.
The following program was recorded at the ARC Annual Industry Forum in Orlando, Florida. I'm pleased to welcome Adrian Gonzalez, Director of Logistics Viewpoints of ARC Advisory Group.
Hello, my name is Adrian Gonzalez with ARC Advisory Group, and I'm here today with Brian Fues, General Manager Operations at Penske Logistics. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Adrian.
Brian, we've been talking a lot about performance-based outsourcing, vested outsourcing, as some experts are calling it, really as an opportunity or a model to transform existing 3PL customer relationships. Why do you think PBO, vested outsourcing, is gaining so much attention these days?
I think probably foremost, you have to see what's going on in the economy today. Obviously, we all have challenges. Everyone's trying to get to the bottom line quicker. There's been a lot of challenges, and there's been some successes. You look at companies like Whirlpool, they're achieving some success, and probably as an early adopter, they have a bit of an advantage today. Everybody wants to catch them. This is a business where you have to move quickly, and I think if you don't move quickly, you probably won't be around for very long. So this model is somewhat different. It's a little bit risky, but I think there's a big payoff at the end for companies.
Right, interesting. So you think something like the recession that we just kind of went through and still kind of recovering, you think that's something that actually serves as a catalyst for companies to look at opportunities to think differently?
Definitely increase the velocity. We all want things better, cheaper, faster, right? Everybody wants that, consumers want that, and better service. The economy changed, right? And so we really, really have to compete for business today. Companies don't have, I guess, the benefit of saying, I'm going to make my bottom line regardless. They really have to work hard at it. And I think by kind of focusing on those areas and focusing on total cost picture and delivering to your customers, I think it works, and it's a good model for that.
Great. Now you mentioned Whirlpool, and certainly your relationship with Whirlpool and the way it has evolved over the years, I think is a good example of a PBO-like type of relationship. Can you talk a little bit about how that relationship has evolved?
We didn't start that way with the PBO relationship. We've had a contract with Whirlpool for more than a decade. And I think as we progressed along, really the timing was right where we could look at things we could do together to make the operations better. So where we are today isn't where we started, but I think it's a good place to be. We've defined goals for both companies that tend to work. We understand each other, we understand the risks. We managed to develop the system around that. The proper metrics are in place, and the leadership teams are in place, and really driven to achieve the results that we're seeing today.
And I think one of the things that you talked about in your presentation was that how this was a little bit of a culture change or a mind shift for Penske. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, big culture change. PBO, it really changes the risk profile. We've invested in a lot of resources up front that we didn't used to have. We have field engineers, fairly expensive people. We have systems experts deployed to the field. We have labor management specialists, again, deployed to the field. So a significant investment from Penske's behalf. Things that there was no guarantee we're going to get this back. So it was really a leap of faith that said, if you do these things, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? And we're working to that end. I think we are achieving some great deal of success. It hasn't been easy. It's a lot of work. It always is. But I think both organizations are committed to making it successful and to getting to the end state.
Well, it sounds like, I think just to drop on what you just said, it sounds like it is a journey, right? And it's something you have to continually work on. And I think there's a level of trust. Obviously, you already had that level of trust, it sounds like, with Whirlpool. And then that's kind of what's facilitated, to be able to take those kind of risks. And obviously, sharing the rewards that go along with that.
Absolutely. I think trust is probably one of the key things that makes it work. When you start off, you don't know exactly what the metrics are or what they should be. You develop them. You start to measure your performance. It has to work for both parties, though. You have to both have a win. And if at some point you may even have to do a restart that says, this doesn't quite work, we need to evolve what we're measuring and how we're sharing the savings a little bit. And as long as you're open and you don't get kind of wound up in this contractual issue, I think that trust is what makes businesses work together, right? You understand that you're committed to the same goal, you're working together to get there. At the end of the day, when you both benefit, you should both benefit financially.
Right. And I think you hit upon already some of these things, some of these attributes, I think, for success that you've have achieved with Whirlpool. What are some of the other attributes or lessons learned from the Whirlpool relationship have you gathered that you can apply perhaps to other customer accounts or other opportunities moving forward?
Probably first and foremost, it's our investment. It's the human capital, right? You have to have the right people, the infrastructure in place to make it work. In our case with Whirlpool, this was industrial engineers, which we deployed to the field. It was systems experts, which we dedicated to the account, and it was labor management specialists. Once you get that in place, okay, that's part of it. Then you have to have kind of a willing customer, right, that says, hey, we're willing to go along. We're going to share some of these savings when we realize them. And there is significant benefit for both companies. You have to have good metrics. Probably goes without saying. You can't start one of these things without knowing what success is once you reach it. It's a surprising number of companies that don't really define success. They just measure what they think is progress. I think it's better to agree up front to how you're going to, what you want to achieve, and once you get there, once you realize that you've actually arrived.
Right, you have to know kind of what the destination is and whether you're moving in that direction. So is PBO, vested outsourcing, is it the right model for every relationship, or are there other relationships that, the traditional, more transaction-based, less, more tactical orientation is more appropriate or good enough?
I think it's a great model for the right application. You have to have a company that, number one, is willing to recognize that they need a business partner. You can't just have a supplier, you need a partner, somebody that you can rely on as the experts to say, I'm really willing to let this activity go and to outsource it to your company because you are best in class at doing these things. There's a reason we want to outsource, right? We want to get back to our core competency, let you focus on yours. That's probably one. A second thing is you have to be brutally honest with the metrics. Metrics tell you a lot of things. One is how things currently operate, some good, some bad. If you have the right metrics, it'll tell you a lot about yourself, but it won't all be good. So you have to measure the things that might even be a little bit uncomfortable, but they spur you to action to kind of do something different and to improve the problems. And probably lastly, I think you have to just continue to say, we're going to get better. It's a continuous journey. It never ends. And if you have companies that have that mindset, it works. Not all companies do. So, but I think probably the early adopters that have done it are seeing a great deal of success, and it really reaffirms the model.
Now, I mean, to wrap things up, we're kind of really at the early adopter phase. I think most relationships, most outsourced logistics relationships wouldn't be characterized as performance-based outsourcing based or vested outsourcing based. What do you think are some of the challenges in the years and months ahead in terms of gaining greater adoption of PBO vested outsourcing? Is it having that mindset? Is it getting to that level of trust before you can engage in this?
Trust is definitely a big part of it. I think if companies trust each other, they'll work together and they can work it out. The other is really the mindset that says, if I can save a whole lot of money in my supply chain, I'm willing to share it with the person that helped me save. A lot of companies don't think like that. It's just the reality of the business, right? So you really have to have the right mindset that says, hey, we're in this together. We're both committing a huge investment. There's a lot of risk for both parties. And once we get past our goals and once we exceed our goals, we're willing to work together and share some of the savings.
Right, so changing mindset, in some ways changing the culture of both parties, the 3PL and the customer, is certainly a critical step, which is arguably one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, very much a cultural shift because you go away from the supplier relationship to this partner relationship. Right. Especially in this business, I think, there's a lot of suppliers. And there's a lot of people that don't know how to be good partners. Once you find the companies that do, though, and they're willing to grow with you and invest with you, I think those are the ones you look for that says, hey, we can be successful together and achieve a lot of good things.
Great, Brian. Well, I appreciate your thoughts and perspectives on performance-based outsourcing, invested outsourcing, and I want to wish you continued success with Whirlpool and your other clients.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we've been sharing these perspectives here on performance-based outsourcing with Brian Fues from Penske. And again, thank you very much.